Hello, I'm Bentley Bryant, and tonight I will be reading one of my short tales, Part 1. The title of this short tale is One of the Greatest Escapes Ever. Aurea was sound asleep when her pet Oscar made his move. He totally enjoyed being cared for by Aurea and her parents, but he'd planned to take off in the night months ago. Living in their expensive 3-bedroom apartment here in New York was awesome, but he began to feel cooped up a while ago. He was too smart to stay in the confines of his space here in the apartment and longed to see what he was missing out there in this big old world. Her dad, a well-known architect, and her mom, a fashion designer, made tons of money, so he, even as a pet, had the best of everything. Even so, once he'd taken off, he felt that they could easily afford to replace him. This thought helped him to process through his feelings about leaving once and for all. Knowing what he knew, he was convinced that he would have to make his move in the wee hours of darkness in order to not attract any unwanted attention. Then there was the factor of waking Aurea in the middle of the night. If she caught him trying to make his move, she'd alert her parents, start crying, and cause a whole scene. The sheer thought of that convinced him that the time he'd picked was perfect. It's odd how many nights he watched her as she slept. He couldn't have asked for a better owner, and he tried to be the ultimate pet over the years. He was grateful that they took him in shortly after he was born, and she'd taken care of him from that point until now. He didn't remember much about the early months when they first took him in, but it was around the second year when he began to remember stuff. It started with feeding time and progressed to nap time, morning time, daytime, and nighttime. It was a point where he even began to understand what they were saying to each other, especially when Aurea's dad began to complain about how much he ate. Well, he really didn't complain, but he joked about it an awful lot. He'd overheard him talking to Aurea's mom a few times. Oscar's gonna have to get a job if he keeps eating up everything. They laughed, but Oscar took it to heart. He barely touched anything they gave him for a week. When he overheard Aurea's mom on the phone with the veterinarian questioning, "He hasn't been eating anything we feed him. What should we do?" He figured he'd best get to gobbling up everything again or else. So he did. It was a miracle. Since no one had a clue that he could understand everything that was being said, everything, he didn't even have to be in the same room. The apartment was over 7,000 square feet, and if a word was spoken in any area of it, Oscar would be sure to hear and understand it. As he moved from his area, he looked around the room at all of the marvelous decor Aurea's mom had designed. Aurea, a huge fan of Little Mermaid, Finding Nemo, and soon Finding Dory, had her room totally decked out in a somewhat underwater theme. The cutest parts of the decor were all of the cute drawings Aurea had drawn of him around her room. She was quite the artist and would have come home at least once a week with a drawing she'd done of him at school. He had never met any of her school friends, but he knew that she'd talked their ears off about him every chance she got. Her mom allowed her only a few drawings up at a time. The rest were kept in her Oscar scrapbook. She actually had 3 or 4 of these scrapbooks because she'd drawn at least one picture of him a week. Their relationship reminded him of the girl and the alien in home. They were really close like those two, except he wasn't an alien. A foreigner, yes, but not an alien. That thought made him chuckle quietly as he climbed up on the bed, lifted Araya's Samsung tablet from near her head, and posted up at the foot of it. Her queen bed was massive, especially for a third grader. Hey, I guess that's how you roll when your mom and dad are filthy rich. Oscar posted up at the end of it nearly every night without fear of awaking Araya, who slept like a log once she was out. She'd always fall asleep playing Angry Birds on her tablet. Oscar, being a huge fan of that game himself, would always pick up where she'd left off. He loved Araya and her parents, but he had been bored for quite a while. She did her best to take care of him, but she was currently in school and she could only look after him in the evenings once she got home. And even then, she couldn't give him her undivided attention because she had to do her homework first, which, by the way, he found extremely easy. There were times he wanted to take her pencil and do it for her, but that would have probably freaked her out. Just like if she woke up right now and caught him playing video games on her tablet while resting at the foot of her bed. Oscar felt like a part of the family, but after living with them for the past 5 years, he was over it. A few months ago, after tapping around on Araya's tablet, he realized that there was a whole different world out there. He began to see others that looked like him. This sparked a curiosity within him that only grew within the passing weeks. He truly felt like he was missing out on life by being a pet. Even though he was living in an upscale residence, there was nothing like the thought of freedom. He paused long enough on his video game to chuckle at the idea of missing signs posted all over the neighborhood. That would be too funny. From his internet research, he found that most pets that ran away found the sounds both funny and ironic.